is kicking our ass in green energy. The average time to get solar panels connected there is 3 to 4 months. About 1,000 days faster than it took me. Remember when I was trying to get my solar hooked up? It would have been quicker to build a windmill. So Texas has passed California in solar and blows away California when it comes to wind and energy storage. How does a state with no pro-climate policies produce better climate results than a state where here, even though we have so much better stickers on our bumper Prius, whatever. Bumper stickers on our Priuses, you know what I'm saying.
Bill Maher has spent years criticizing California's political leadership, and despite constant pushback, he shows no signs of slowing down. In his latest discussion, he argued that the state once celebrated as America's model of innovation is now struggling under the weight of its own government. According to Maher, California still has incredible advantages. Its economy, talented workforce, and global influence remain unmatched in many areas. Yet he believes poor leadership has prevented the state from reaching its full potential. Rather than blaming outside forces, Maher suggested that many of California's biggest challenges are self-inflicted. In his view, complicated regulations, political indecision, and years of ineffective management have created problems that continue to grow instead of being solved. His central message was clear: California still has the resources to succeed. But without meaningful reforms, those strengths alone won't be enough to restore the state's reputation.
There's a Democrat who's running for governor here in California now who's saying it, San Jose Mayor Maher. Yeah, because he's at 4% in the polls. Everybody has been calling me lately saying, you gotta have this guy on. He's the sensible Democrat we've been looking for. To which I tell them, one, this is a national show. It's not all about you and your life in California. 2, how did you get this number? And 3, what's his plan to get the leaf blowers to shut the fuck up in the morning? But also, you're right, he does sound sensible. Because he's at 4%. That's when everybody's brave. If he got to 40%, would he still be saying, as he does say, we need Democratic leaders in California who are willing to say no to their friends?
Maher then shifted his attention to politicians who suddenly become outspoken after their political influence begins to fade. He argued that some public officials only start criticizing failed policies once they no longer have much to lose. While their honesty may sound refreshing, Maher questioned whether those same voices would have spoken up if they were still comfortably leading in the polls. According to him, real leadership means addressing problems while you're still in a position to fix them, not after public opinion has already turned against you. Maher suggested that voters often reward authenticity, but they can also recognize when criticism appears to be motivated by political survival rather than genuine conviction. For him, speaking the truth carries the greatest value when it involves real political risk.
That would be the unions, the bureaucrats, the lawyers, the consultants, the regulators, and all the special interest friends who make living in this state such a frustrating, maddening experience. It's why the railroads don't get built, the potholes don't get filled, the homeless don't get housed, the kids don't learn.
The discussion then turned toward California's growing bureaucracy. Maher argued that even simple public projects have become unnecessarily complicated because of endless layers of regulations, permits, and administrative reviews. He suggested that tasks which should take weeks can sometimes require months or even years before any meaningful progress is made. According to Maher, this system doesn't merely slow development, it increases costs and discourages investment. He used infrastructure as an example, explaining that delays often become more expensive than the projects themselves. Instead of focusing on practical solutions, government agencies may spend excessive time navigating procedures that produce little visible improvement for residents. Maher believes efficient government should remove unnecessary obstacles rather than create new ones.
Know that a black fourth grader in Mississippi is 2.5 times as likely to be proficient in math and reading as one in California? Mississippi is kicking our ass in education, and for way less money. We're 37th in fourth grade reading, they're 9th.
Education became another major focus of the conversation. Maher questioned why California continues to spend enormous amounts on public education, while many parents remain concerned about student performance. He argued that increased funding alone cannot guarantee better academic outcomes if the education system itself fails to improve. According to Maher, schools should prioritize strong reading, mathematics, writing, and critical thinking skills before becoming distracted by broader political debates. He suggested that families expect measurable results from such significant public investment, especially when education plays such an important role in shaping future generations. For Maher, success should ultimately be measured by how well students are prepared for higher education, careers, and everyday life, not simply by how much money is allocated to the system.
Texas is kicking our ass in green energy. The average time to get solar panels connected there is 3 to 4 months. About 1,000 days faster than it took me. Remember when I was trying to get my solar hooked up? It would have been quicker to build a windmill.
Maher then turned to California's environmental policies, arguing that good intentions alone don't guarantee good results. For years, California has promoted itself as a national leader in clean energy and climate initiatives. While supporters praise these efforts, Maher questioned whether the state's complex regulatory system has made progress slower than necessary. He pointed out that other states, including some with very different political leadership, have expanded renewable energy while operating under fewer administrative restrictions. In his view, this raises an important question. Should success be measured by ambitious promises or by measurable outcomes? Maher argued that environmental progress shouldn't be slowed by excessive bureaucracy. Policies should encourage innovation, speed up development, and deliver practical results instead of creating endless delays. According to him, effective leadership is judged by what gets accomplished, not by how impressive the legislation appears on paper.
So Texas has passed California in solar and blows away California when it comes to wind and energy storage. How does a state with no pro-climate policies produce better climate results than a state where here, even though we have so much better stickers on our bumper Prius, whatever. Bumper stickers on our Priuses, you know what I'm saying.
The discussion then shifted toward California's broader economic challenges. Maher argued that many businesses and residents have chosen to leave the state because of rising costs, heavy regulations, and an increasingly difficult business environment. While California remains one of the world's largest economies, he suggested that economic strength alone can't hide growing concerns about affordability and competitiveness. High housing costs, expensive operating expenses, and lengthy approval processes have become common complaints among employers and entrepreneurs. Maher emphasized that when businesses relocate, they don't simply take profits elsewhere. They also take jobs, investment, and future opportunities with them. He argued that governments should create conditions that encourage economic growth, while still protecting workers and communities. For Maher, successful leadership means finding a balance between regulation and opportunity, rather than allowing either extreme to dominate public policy.
Why? Because you're allowed to build there. Because every third person in Texas isn't someone whose job it is to make sure nothing gets done. Democrats, these are your issues. Education, race, the environment. And I say this with love. You're losing to the Waffle House car on the lawn.
Maher concluded this section by focusing on political accountability. He argued that after decades of one-party leadership, voters naturally expect measurable improvements in the issues that matter most, including education, infrastructure, public safety, and environmental management. According to Maher, every political party should ultimately be judged by results instead of campaign promises. He suggested that when governments repeatedly fail to solve long-standing problems, citizens have every right to ask difficult questions and demand better performance from their elected leaders. Maher emphasized that criticism should never be viewed as an attack on democracy. Instead, he believes it plays an essential role in keeping governments transparent and accountable. His message was straightforward. Political loyalty should never replace honest evaluation. No matter which party holds power, leaders must remain willing to acknowledge mistakes, adapt their policies, and earn public trust through meaningful action rather than rhetoric.
Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in this state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this. When asked why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before.
As the discussion continued, Maher turned his attention to one of California's most persistent challenges, wildfires. He argued that the issue isn't simply a shortage of resources. California already has access to advanced firefighting equipment, trained emergency crews, and one of the largest disaster response systems in the country. The bigger concern, he suggested, is whether those resources are being managed efficiently. Maher questioned why similar problems continue to appear year after year despite billions of dollars being invested in prevention and emergency response. According to him, preparation matters just as much as funding. Equipment must be maintained, infrastructure needs regular inspections, and emergency planning has to stay ahead of potential disasters instead of reacting after they happen. His broader message was that successful disaster management depends on organization, accountability, and long-term planning, not simply increasing budgets after every crisis.
The power lines that cut through Topanga weren't upgraded because it endangered an herb, the milk vetch, which sounds like something they serve at Passover. I mean, talk about not seeing the forest for the trees. You know what the absolute worst thing for the environment is? Wildfires. A 22 study found that the smoke from just the two in 2020 wiped out 18 years of carbon reduction in the state, which means we suffered the pain of driving those early model Priuses for.
The conversation then shifted toward taxes and public expectations. Maher argued that when residents and businesses contribute significant tax revenue, they naturally expect visible improvements in the services government provides. California generates enormous income through taxes, yet many citizens continue to express concerns about housing affordability, infrastructure, homelessness, and public safety. Maher suggested that this gap between spending and results is one of the reasons public frustration has continued to grow. He also noted that a number of companies and residents have chosen to relocate in search of lower costs and a simpler regulatory environment. Whether those decisions are driven by taxes, living expenses, or business conditions, Maher believes they reflect a larger question that every government should ask. Are public policies making life easier for citizens or more difficult? For him, responsible government isn't measured by how much money it collects, but by how effectively it turns that money into practical results that people can see in their daily lives.